thousands of years, we've been carefully crossing bloodlines to bring forth past and future, space and time. It's not fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings obliteration.
Create or arouse such unbridled forces, and you built carnal fantasies of enormous complexity. You could lead whole populations around by their desires, by their fantasy projections. There was a terrible power the Honored Matres dared to use. Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. As requested, today we're continuing our run on Dune, with an exploration of the Honored Matres. A splinter group of the Bene Gesserit who disappeared during the scattering, the Honored Matres are ruthless and powerful, carrying a dark and violent version of the Bene Gesserit's manipulation techniques. Their return from the scattering heralds a time of upheaval and change. The existing power structures of the old empire are tested and often brutally suppressed as they swiftly and decisively take control. Their rise isn't just a shift in the balance of power, it's a shockwave that disrupts the established order of the universe. But who are these mysterious, violent women, and what caused them to become such a potent and disruptive force? To answer that, we'll need to delve into their origins, their beliefs, customs, ideologies, abilities, history, and the circumstances that shaped them into the power-hungry group we meet in the series. The Honored Matres were a powerful, all-female group who emerged from uncharted space to become formidable rivals of the Bene Gesserit, some nearly 2,000 years after the death of the God Emperor Leto Atreides II. During the departure of countless people in the scattering, the Bene Gesserit sent out many exploration and colonization teams from within their own ranks. Nothing was initially heard of the groups again. However, it was later discovered that some did survive, and indeed thrived in numbers and power. Adaptable and resilient, they survived the rigors of the scattering, but not without significant change. In the untamed regions of the universe, a new and more vicious order emerged from these Bene Gesserit survivors, one that would become known as the Honored Matres. Their experiences and interactions with other groups from the scattering triggered fundamental changes in their beliefs, customs, and objectives. According to the evidence of Reverend Mother Belonda, the Honored Matres were formed in the scattering by the Sisterhood's Reverend Mothers who had been sent out in these groups, and the fish speakers that used to serve Leto II in extremis. They were also later revealed to be descended from the females of the Tleilaxu, which we'll discuss in more detail later in the video. 10,000 years since Leto II began his metamorphosis from human into the sandworm of Arrakis, and historians still argue over his motives. Was he driven by the desire for long life? He lived more than 10 times a normal span of 300 standard years, but consider the price he paid. Was it the lure of power? He's called the tyrant for good reason, but what did power bring him that a human might want? Was he driven to save humankind from itself? We have only his own words about his golden path to answer this, and I cannot accept the self-serving records of Dar es Balat. Might there have been other gratifications, which only his experiences would illuminate? Without better evidence, the question is moot. We are reduced to saying only that he did it. The physical fact alone is undeniable. Following the death of the tyrant, the God Emperor of Dune, trillions of people of the old empire took to the stars in a diaspora known as the Scattering. His death saw the eventual breakdown of his empire, severe famine on many worlds, and the introduction of Ixian no-ships. It was all part of the Golden Path as put forward by Leto, which was triggered by a perceived need to diversify the human race and allow it to evolve. And so, representatives from each major race and order of the Empire spread out beyond the known universe in fleets of no-ships, beginning the journey along Leto II's Golden Path to save mankind from destruction. The Honored Matres developed during this time, before returning to the old Empire, wreaking havoc and leaving destruction in their wake. Without pause, they ruthlessly take control of key systems and planets, asserting their power through brutal force and sexual manipulation, a dark mirror of the Bene Gesserit methods. Their ferocity is unprecedented, causing even the hardened Sisterhood to recoil in alarm. Tleilaxu Master Wuff notes that they are far more terrible than Reverend Mothers of the Bene Gesserit. Still, it's revealed that they were fleeing a powerful unknown enemy that had conquered their own massive empire out in the Scattering. Called the Ones of Many Faces, or simply the Enemy, it's revealed their foe were in fact the machines of the reborn Thinking Machines Empire. We covered the Thinking Machines in my massive video on the Butlerian Jihad, links in the description, but this malevolent force is basically the reason the Honored Matres fled back into the old Atreides Empire. Violent and without mercy, the Matres possessed military and sexual skills that indicated they were an outgrowth of the fish speakers and Bene Gesserit who fled during the scattering. They do not, however, possess other memory or use spice melange, though their skill as sexual imprinters has actually surpassed that of the Bene Gesserit. Over time, the Matres targeted the Bene Tleilax and captured and tortured as many Bene Gesserit Reverend Mothers as possible to glean their secrets. Similarly, the Bene Gesserit hoped to decipher the motive of their new enemy and learn what they could to defeat them. Around 10 years into their flight from the thinking machines, the Honored Matres established a base on the planet Gamu, formerly Guided Prime, homeworld of House Harkonnen. Within a handful of years, the Matres were taking over control of an increasing number of planets, infiltrating and manipulating their way into power. As a result, the loose economic federation, kept together by Coam, slowly fell apart. The existence of no ships raises the possibility of destroying entire planets without retaliation. A large object, asteroid or equivalent, may be sent against the planet, or the people can be set against each other by sexual subversion and can then be armed to destroy themselves. These Honored Matres appear to favor this latter technique.
Stop! Cut the rope! Give me the knife!
While some Bene Gesserit ideologies remained a part of the Honored Matres' identity, they often incorporated outside customs and philosophies that made them very distinct from and often at odds with their ancestral origins. Key to these was their general opinion of control. While the Bene Gesserit used subtle and often deceptive methods to retain their power base within an existing balance of power, the Honored Matres sought to supersede the status quo and gain absolute control over all other groups. The former used coercion and manipulation, the latter opted for complete and utter domination. This aggressive strategy required the enslavement and destruction of all other power brokers, consequently demanding the group gain powerful control mechanisms to facilitate this. The most effective method used by the Honored Matres to infiltrate and overwhelm other groups was a form of sexual enslavement. During their evolution in uncharted space, they perfected sexual intercourse into a narcotic process. By using carefully crafted skills, a practitioner learned how to coerce an outsider into total subservience. This action, performed often and upon the right individuals, allowed them to conquer many other groups in space and build a formidable military and resource base. They hungered for intimidation and violence, a trait that encompassed their entire culture. Evidence of this was visible in their proclivity to use assassinations to gain power. The leadership succession practices employed by the Order are just as extreme. A subordinate sister basically needed to kill the leader, their so-called Great Honored Matra or Matra Superior, to take her place. Thus, the title of leader changed frequently, and loyalty between the Honored Matres was conditional at best. This rite of ascension is another reason why the group is so volatile. Seeking Bene Gesserit skills such as cellular control, they continued using violence and destroyed planets and civilizations with their stolen weapons. The Matres then returned to the core of the Old Atreides Empire during the leadership of Bene Gesserit Mother Superior Alma Mavis Taraza. They wrought havoc in an attempt to instill fear and gain absolute power over all. After conquering many planets, they made Junction their capital in their War of Conquest, which was a key center of commerce and travel, and a linchpin in the intricate machinery of the Old Empire. We see the Matres take Junction with brute force, leaving the entire planet in ruins, a stark testament to their power and cruelty. This is also the period where we see some of the most significant confrontations between the Bene Gesserit and the Honored Matres. On Gamu, the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother Lucilla is captured by the Matres, giving us a disturbing first-hand account of their brutal methods and violent ways. Though most groups of the Old Empire were conquered or infiltrated, the Bene Gesserit mounted strong resistance, thanks in no small part to their immunity to the Honored Matres' enslavement skills. The Honored Matre achievement, power for the sake of power, an aristocracy bred from unbalanced stock. As we've already discussed, the Honored Matres rule through sexual enslavement, their unique combat, and the fear inspired by their draconian methods. Completely without mercy and quick to anger, they would often resort to extreme measures of violence in the face of the slightest provocations. Even a joke interpreted by them as a slight could lead to your death. The Bene Gesserit initially believed this arose from the rage that came from their increasingly jaded tastes, mainly as a result of being able to exercise absolute sexual control over another person. However, it's later discovered that this actually came from the genetically ingrained hatred they had for the Tleilaxu. The Honored Matres effectively lack the control the Bene Gesserit have over their internal chemistry, making them vulnerable to disease in ways that the Bene Gesserit are not. And lacking Bene Gesserit other memory, they used an agony-inducing device known as a T-probe in order to impress knowledge directly to their nervous system. The group were characterized by their extremely violent tendencies and ability to imprint. Their target would reach such an ecstatic height that they effectively became addicted to their imprinter, thereby turning them into a willing slave of the one that marked them, kind of like a vampire's thrall. You can imagine the power this gave them to subvert powerful leaders, military officers, and politicians, with some managing to get entire planets to bend the knee without spilling any blood. This is presumed to be an evolution of the unbridled energies of the Seanok communion, once enjoyed by the Fish Speakers and the God Emperor Leto Atreides II. The Honored Matres exercise a form of what the Bene Gesserit refer to as prana bindu, a state of concentration that was essential to the observation skills and martial art techniques of the Bene Gesserit. We also covered this in my massive video on the Bene Gesserit, but suffice to say that the Bene Gesserit believed it was needed to understand the reality of a situation. However, the Matres were able to execute movement at a greater speed than their counterparts, giving them a slight edge. This was coupled with their fighting style, known as Hormu, which focused on concentrated attacks to weak points on the body. The combination of these produced a warrior that was superhumanly fast and more than a match for any fully trained Reverend Mother in direct combat. The group had a form of linguistic mind control. The Honored Matres could basically use language and tone to compel people into obedience on a subconscious level. Only people with considerable training had a chance of resisting this. However, it should be noted that these skills are nowhere near as potent as the Bene Gesserit voice.
Leave us.
You must do everything that my Reverend Mother tells you.
You dismissed my mother in her own house.
Come here. Kneel.
Just as the Bene Gesserit rely on spice melange and its many beneficial properties, the Honored Matres employ and are similarly addicted to a drug that stimulates the production of adrenaline and other chemicals. In addition to heightening the senses and responses of a user, it caused the eyes of an addict to be covered in flecks of orange when agitated, comparable to the constant blue within blue of spice addiction on Arrakis. When an addict is completely enraged, the eyes are consumed by the color orange, kind of a major warning that their compulsion to kill was difficult if not impossible to resist. Because the substance is typically produced by the body when experiencing pain, it's no surprise then that the melange substitute is quite literally derived and extracted from the pain of others. In the books, it's explained that the enslaved Tlaxu scribe Uxtal is given the task of manufacturing the stimulant by torturing prisoners of war. It's here that we learn that different types of pain produce different qualities of the substitute, which in turn had a different effect on the user, further showcasing the depths of their depravity and the fact that there was nothing they wouldn't do to achieve their goals. It also highlighted the twisted mentality and philosophy of the faction, and the inherent instability that came with their customs and ideologies, reflected in the trail of destruction left wherever they went. Using their own skills and resources, the Bene Gesserit succeeded in holding the Honored Matres at bay. However, realizing military might would not be enough to succeed long term, they embarked on a strategy of infiltration, capturing Mabella, a talented and rapidly emerging member of the Honored Matres. Mabella had been raised in the Order from an early age, but was thought to possess physical and mental abilities far above her fellow trainees. Among these were amazing reflexes and the ability to amplify ecstasy to near unimaginable levels. During a stay in the city of Yasai, Mabella captured a Duncan, Idaho Gola created by the Tleelax with unique traits and attempted to imprint the Bene Gesserit loyalist. However, thanks to the powers within his genetic makeup, he was able to partially resist her and instead imprint himself onto her psyche. Thus, the pair became addicted to one another. The Sisterhood made good use of Idaho's newfound abilities and addiction to Mabella to extract information from the Honored Matre, and it wasn't long before they started to train her as one of their own. Later, as the Honored Matre attacks intensified, Duncan, Idaho and Mabella were confined to Chapter House, where the intense bond created by their mutual imprinting made them reluctant lovers. Darwi Odrade, the new leader of the Sisterhood, decided to accelerate Mabella's training as a Bene Gesserit. This was despite the belief of some in the organization that she intended to steal their secrets and escape back to Gamu. Their strict training methods and the revelations that came with it eventually undermined her Matre identity, and Mabella began to see her former Matres as unstable and downright dangerous. Through the use of her bond with Idaho, they slowly turned her to their collective will, with Mabella transforming into a Bene Gesserit. During this entire period, Mabella provided the Sisterhood with 4 daughters, Janice, Rinya, Jian, and Tunisia, uniting the genetics of Idaho and the Honored Matres into a powerful combination. Finally, it was decided that Mabella was ready to become a Reverend Mother, though many still had expressed their concern over the matter. Who will share with you? Garrett me again. Indeed. That is the political question of most interest. Who may succeed Mother Superior? Odrade heard nervous stirring behind her. Mabella and Sheena, Odrade said, and one other if Proctus cared to name a candidate. Proctus formed little consulting groups, shouting suggestions from group to group, but no names were submitted. Someone had a question though. Why Mabella? Who knows Honored Matres better? Odrade asked. That silenced them. Foreseeing the importance of this in the future, Odrade relaxed restrictions for Duncan, and for the first time ever, a man was allowed to watch a spy ceremony. Idaho was filled with trepidation. Darway watched with equal anxiety. Mabella was essentially vital to her plan to deal with the Honored Matres and reform the Sisterhood. Reverend Mother Superior Odrade believed that the Bene Gesserit made a mistake in fearing emotion, and that in order to evolve, the Bene Gesserit must learn to accept them. This is why Mabella's connection to Duncan was so crucial. Luckily, Darway is pleased to find Mabella took and survived the hard path to becoming a Reverend Mother. Using other memory, Mabella soon learned the missing link in the origins of the Matres. She confirms that while they were indeed a hybrid group of the Bene Gesserit and fish speakers, they had developed their violent tendencies with their third edition, the awakened Tleilaxu females. Essentially brain dead and unconscious, the females had been turned into axolotl tanks, where they spent the rest of their life breeding whatever the Tleilaxu wanted to create. Some were eventually rescued by the offshoot of fish speakers and Bene Gesserit, regained their consciousness, and vowed revenge on the Tleilaxu men for the crimes committed against them. The best-kept secret of the Tleilaxu, that their famed axolotl tanks were in fact their race's females, had been laid bare before the matriarchal alliance, and their wrath had known no bounds. Attacking every Tleilaxu planet on their way out of the galaxy, the martial prowess of both the fish speakers and the Bene Gesserit had ensured their victory. Thus, when the Honored Matres burst upon the universe again, they took special care to lay waste to every extant Tleilaxu world, though the Matres of later generations could not remember the origin of their own hatred. Mabella also discovered the true nature of the unknown enemy, and how they were the resurrected thinking machines, thought destroyed at the end of the Butlerian Jihad. Through other memory, she witnesses the Honored Matres' first encounter with the unknown enemy. A young Matra commander had invaded an area controlled by the remnants of the Machine Empire with initial success. However, the retribution of the thinking machines had been terrible, especially when they realized that humanity still existed. We're told the Matra leader named Lenice and her entourage stumbled upon a robotic outpost, a fringe planet of the reborn thinking machine empire. Lenice and the group managed to steal the obliterator weapons on the outpost, using it to destroy the base. But before its complete destruction, it sent a signal to Omnius and Erasmus on distant synchrony, who quickly launched an aggressive counterattack. Lenice realized her peril and retreated back into human scattering space, drawing the machines after her group. Unfortunately, this led the machines to learn where humanity was sheltering within the galaxies, and it wasn't long until they launched starships and the dreaded Omnius Scourge against the Matres. The Matres' losses were staggering, and they quickly abandoned most of their worlds, such as Ricka's planet, before retreating quickly back into the old Imperium. This brought them a few decades of reprieve from the machine pursuers, who lacked vault space technology, which the Matres had with no ships, but it also meant the machines were free to destroy what was the old Honored Matre Empire. With Mabella having unlocked the secret of their history, Odrade called a convocation, a meeting of all the Bene Gesserit, and announced her plan to attack the Honored Matres on Junction. She also announced candidates to succeed her as Mother Superior, those being Sheena and Mabella. The attack seemed headed for failure, and Mabella saved as much of the Bene Gesserit force as she could, enabling them to withdraw. Odrade had anticipated they might lose an all-out offensive, and so as a contingency, she left Mabella instructions for a last desperate gambit. Mabella piloted a small craft down to the surface, announcing herself as an Honored Matre who had managed to escape the Bene Gesserit in the confusion of war. She claimed that she wants to share all of the Bene Gesserit secrets that she had learned, and in their desire to wipe out their rivals, some listened to her story. When an overeager Honored Matre dared to move on her, Mabella killed her with blinding speed, demonstrating how the combination of Matre and Bene Gesserit training had enhanced her abilities. She was then taken to the newest great Honored Matre, Lono, and immediately declared herself hostile. Lono could not help herself and attacked Mabella, but the Reverend Mother simply killed her and the many others that stepped up to challenge her. While Andrade was mortally wounded in the melee, before she passed, Dawi shared with Mabella, giving her control over the entire Bene Gesserit sisterhood. Awed by her physical prowess and ability to see into other memory, the Honored Matres did nothing as Mabella also took charge of their faction. However, her ascension to leadership was not accepted as a victory by all of the sisterhood. Some felt that she would corrupt the spirit of the Bene Gesserit, and despite her simply honoring the wishes of Andrade, many worried that her plan of merging the two orders into a new sisterhood was doomed to fail. Getting a vision of her own, Sheena, who was the other candidate initially put forward as a potential leader, decides to leave with a handful of dissenters. Asking Duncan and others that were disenfranchised if they wanted to join them, the group fled Chapter House in a nose ship before they could be stopped. Mabella discovered their plan at the last minute, but it was too late. Though it could be argued that Duncan's departure solved many problems for her new role as leader, hence why she didn't really try to stop them. After she united the Bene Gesserit and the Honored Matres, Mabella decided they needed to make up for the terror they'd inflicted on the universe by uniting humanity in the upcoming war with the thinking machines. She organized a meeting with the guild, and with her council aides, Doria and Belonda, she told the leader of the navigators to do their respective parts. In return, she promised to dole out rations of the sisterhood's great stockpile of spice melange. To further the war effort, she also met with technicians on Ruthless and Ix and demanded that they increase production of starships. Doria and Belonda then oversaw the burgeoning production of spice from the sandworms on the soon-to-be unified Chapter House, reckoning that all the spice would be needed as payment to the ship producers of Ruthless and Ix. Finally, she had the talented Supreme Bashar Wiki Aston to lean on for military guidance and support. As expected, not all Matres immediately recognized Mabella as leader, nor did they agree with her desire to merge the two groups. The most notable was a rebel faction on the world of Bazel, and the main rebel faction on Tleilax from the main city of Bandalon, led by Helica. Mabella led the paramilitary group of specially trained New Sisterhood operatives called the Valkyries against Bazel, easily conquering the Sea World. This gave her the confidence to ultimately lay siege to Tleilax and Bandalon, eliminating the last rebel factions of Matres. The planet Tleilax fell with a bloody battle, which saw the destruction of many cities. Shockingly, as Helica died, it was revealed that she and the other rebel leaders were actually lost Tleilaxu-enhanced face dancers. They'd basically been leading the Bandalon faction astray for years. The realization that the main Matres rebel stronghold had been led by face dancers, their dwindling numbers, and the need to unite against the enemy caused the final unification of the new sisterhood. As the end of the age occurred with the unfolding of Kralizak, the long-foretold battle at the end of the universe, mankind was forced once again to confront Omnius and Erasmus on the machine capital of Synchrony. Unbeknownst to Mabella, the patron saint of the guild, Norma Senva, also known as the Oracle of Time, instantly banished Omnius from the universe, causing the machine ships to come to a dead stop. Ships led by the Oracle's guild navigators then appeared over Chapter House and requested she follow them to Synchrony. When she arrived, Mabella discovered that Erasmus merged information and machine codes with Duncan Idaho's body, creating a type of technological other memory within him, which complemented the human other memory of the Kwisatz Haderach. Becoming a new Evermind for the machines, Idaho announced that the prescriptions of the Butlerian Jihad had gone too far, that man and machine had to unite and work cooperatively in the future. He then took his place as the final and ultimate Kwisatz Haderach, the force that guided the renewed united thinking machine and human empire to a bright future. Given how much the Honored Matres and Bene Gesserit hated the machines, this peace was in a way only maintained by the imprinting Duncan and Mabella had on each other. Andrade effectively knew that both of them would be the key to not only saving the Bene Gesserit, but that they would also be instrumental in guiding the future of mankind.
You steer the politics of the Imperium from the shadows.
But there's more to it.
What does it mean? That I could be the one?
Who can help us into a better future? We think he's very close now. Some believe he's here.
All part of a plan.
With that said, that's all for today, folks. A huge thanks to everyone that requested we finally explored the Honored Matres. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and if there's anything else you'd like for me to cover, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
Ah!